Ashish? Yeah, that's done. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Very good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining this webinar of M-Junction. And I have the pleasure of having with me three esteemed colleagues from the industry who are here with us today to share their experience and knowledge with all of us here and the audience who are joining in virtually. My name is Anirban Sarkar. I'm with M-Junction for the last 20 years and in various roles, but procurement and sourcing has been one of the main areas where I've worked in. Currently, I head our business operations in the UK and Europe geography. So without taking further more time, I would like to introduce our esteemed panel. First on the guest list today is Mr. Chandar Mohan Chugh. Mr. Chugh is General Manager, Contracts and Commercial in Steel Authority of India, Center for Engineering and Technology, which is based out of Ranchi. He's a BTech in Civil Engineering from IIT Mumbai and a PGDM from IIM Ranchi, where he was a silver medalist in the batch of 60. He had joined SAIL as a management trainee and was a batch topper. He has a professional experience of more than 3 decades of contributing in varied domains in steel industry, ranging from procurement, engineering, consulting, administration, audit, and vigilance. So he will be able to contribute, significantly to the topic that we have in hand today. He has led his team in transforming the procurement function to completely online, overcoming glitches and other, convincing the stakeholders, managing change, and which is, I think, very pertinent to our topic. Thank you, Mr. Chugh, for joining this panel today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
The next esteemed guest on our panel is Mr. Chandrasekhar Shastri. He's a Senior General Manager, Procurement in SL Mining. Mr. Shastri is an MBA Finance from ICFI and an 11th All India rank holder in Cost and Management Accountant, Masters in Statistics, and PGDM in Computer Application. Mr. Shastri joined Aditya Birla Consulting Division as a management consulting way back in 1998. And after working there for 11 years in various strategy formulations, he had joined SL Mining in 2009, which is another ABJ company. Mr. Shastri has got very good background in negotiation for bulk items for Aditya Birla Group overall. He has extensive experience in developing and implementing supply chain management strategies for AV NACV Canada. And he was also instrumental in developing standard operating procedures for stores and purchase and marketing for Aditya Birla Group. Thank you for joining Mr. Shastri, our platform. You're welcome here.
Thank you, Mr. Sarkar.
Thank you. The last gentleman on our panel is Mr. Girish. Mr. Girish is Director of ISCM and Editor of ISCM Knowledge Portal, which is in Supply Chain Community magazine or portal. He teaches, he's from the pedagogue industry, and he is extremely well versed and experienced in the supply chain area. We're very fortunate to have him here. So he teaches supply chain risk management and supply chain finance at ISCM. Mr. Girish has more than 30 years of domestic and international professional experience. His experience lies mainly in the technology adoption in supply chain, very pertinent again to the topic that we have today. Supply chain finance, supply chain risk management, and enterprise risk management. He has also delivered training programs at some of the leading companies and taught at some of the leading B schools in India. Thank you, Mr. Girish, for joining this platform and this webinar today. You're welcome. So thank you, folks, for joining us today. And I'd like to introduce to you the topic and give you a bit of objectives, what we have for this meeting today. The topic is adoption is key in digitizing procurement, the challenges and the enablers. And since most of you colleagues are from the procurement and sourcing field or supply chain field, you'll appreciate that more than technology, more than a practice, more than a strategy, the most important part is adoption and how we deal with challenges in adoption. So the objectives of this webinar is to discuss and understand, number one, challenges in adopting any technology in your area, the process changes that are required in an organization, pitfalls of lack of adoption on e-procurement in an organization, how change management can be best handled. We have an esteemed panel here who have the experience, right experience to share and talk about this, and a few of the best practices in procurement technology adoption. They can share their experience or share what they have understood and known in this industry for being there for so long. Now, the bit of context setting, what we are saying is adoption and not innovation is key to technology success. The above statement is no way dwarfs the importance of innovation, but reiterates the criticality of adoption. Even though the above is a strong point, we do not mind agreeing with the history, suggesting many technology failures because of lack of adoption. Investment in technology can only return if adopted organization-wide, or at least by all the stakeholders who were meant to be beneficiaries. So there are kind of two metrics that we see: adoption by user and alignment to processes, and coverage of all buys. So with that, I don't want to take more time, but request our esteemed speakers here to share their initial thoughts on this topic and their bit of opening remarks, please. So starting off, Mr. Chu, if you may, please.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Nirmal, for inviting me, for having me on this panel, and thanks for introducing me with all those kind words. All right, so coming to the topic, innovation or adoption, the basic theme of the webinar. Innovation, of course, is something which you get from, as just a few minutes back we were talking about necessity is the mother of invention. Probably innovation comes from there, the need, as also they say in marketing. So the need makes you innovate, to produce, to create. And then what happens is you tell people about it, and people would like to adopt or not to adopt, will depend on a huge, spectrum of factors. So that we would see when we discuss those things. But as far as this procurement is concerned, what exactly we would be discussing, I mean, as we go along, I'm sure, what has been our system and how we have evolved from there, and how this pandemic has really affected the scenario, and what could be the way forward. So to begin with, I think that should be good enough for me to just wait and see what do you have up your sleeves, and we'll come back to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chu. Mr. Shastri, any initial comments that you wish to share?
See, Mr. Sarkar, we may please appreciate that the procurement professionals today are facing increasing pressure for not only the cost reduction, but the supply security also. The supply chain continuity and more agile approaches to purchasing as a technology brings opportunity to streamline the process and improve the data insights. So, and when it comes to the technology adoption and all, see, we the purchase officers, we prioritize the digitalizations as our key objectives.
Right.
But there are very low success, like it's only 28% of the purchase officers sees the great adoptions and positive ROI from their investments. Because the only reason is when we take any initiative or digitalizations, the majority of failure is an outcome of the disconnect between the digital prioritizations and the actual user adoptions that generates the meaningful business results. So today's agenda is adoptions. We will discuss in detail later, like how adoptions plays a major and critical roles in any of the digitalizations objectives and initiatives are grand successor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Request Mr. Girish to share his initial a couple of minutes and take us through what is top of his mind. Mr. Girish, if you may please unmute. I think
Yeah.
can't hear you.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The last couple of years, I've seen a very interesting change in the way corporates have functioned. So we were all used to a demand fluctuation and supply was considered to be fairly stable. But the last couple of years have called into question exactly that. And companies did a lot of innovations in the last couple of years when it comes to supply innovation, also ensuring continuity. Yes, almost all the CPOs that we have had conversations with have always said that it is not cost anymore, but ensuring supply continuity. But that's a debate which I think we will come to. There are a couple of quick questions quick things that I would like to state at the beginning. Procurement has always led the way out of major disruptions earlier also, even in the 98 disruption, 2008 disruptions, we have always led the way out of the crisis and we will still do it. But the change that we are going to see this time is that we will have to rethink everything that we do about this function. Not just what we do, but also how we operate. And more important, what are the new capabilities that we will need to build in our teams? These are some of the strategic issues. And I think if I were to look at it, I could recall some 4 or 5 large issues that are there in the procurement domain, which we need to strengthen to create the new procurement. One is supply chain resilience, of course, which is the first thing that today we are coming up with. Second is investing in supplier partnerships, because the pandemic showed that wherever there were deep supplier partnerships, those companies did prosper. Third, very important function is how do we accelerate digital and analytics in our procurement function. And finally, what we need to look at is also how do we create an agile operating model for procurement. All of these are tied in with technology, and none of this is possible without technology. As we discuss, we will look at some of the very critical issues within each of these functions as far as technology is concerned and how technology can be an aid, including, as Chandrasekhar talked about, of the return on investment. There are some things that we need to also focus on there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Girish, for those initial comments. And I think you have rightly encapsulated some of the top needs in today's procurement function. So I'll kick off this seminar with our questions. My first question is to you, Mr. Chun. What triggered the requirement of procurement technology in your organization, or the recent procurement technology? Of course, technology has always been in procurement somewhere or other. But the recent procurement technologies that we see are getting adopted in your particular organization. What were the triggers for that? So if you can take us through that, please.
Okay, thank you. See, as I was just talking about the need, it's like the need which has triggered this kind of innovation. It's something like how we invented wheel, because we wanted man to be mobile. And then the rockets, because we wanted to explore the universe and go beyond the stars and things like that.
Right.
So it basically stems from there. Mm-hmm. Okay, before I go any further in that direction, let me just take you through what we were doing prior to we became we digitalize our procurement system. Right. As simple as that. There used to be an indent form, which used to be, it's a paper kind of a thing. There is a format in that, and the indenter would fill in the details, what is required, how much is required, and the likely sources, all in your hand or typewritten or whatever it is. Of course, earlier it used to have, you must have been written, but now it's on a Word document kind of a format. Then the sources, as I said, the estimate, the basis of estimate, blah blah, all those we all know about the drill. Now, this would be seen by somebody senior to him, the HOD, those things will take on a lot of time, discussions, and this will go on. And then the indent form would come to the purchase officer, who will scrutinize, who will check it with the other, benchmarks, the system, I mean, whether everything has been covered properly or not. Then we will send it to finance for asking for the budget. Then in most of the cases, there will be something called, what we have is a screening committee. It's a top level kind of a committee which would, examine the different kind of, I mean, the indents, the different details. Sometimes in case of open tendering, it would be eligibility criteria and so on and so forth. See, it's easier said than done. All this, whatever activities I have talked about, and then of course, sorry, I forgot about the final approval and financial concurrence and things like that before we go live with the tender. Now, all these activities, imagine it's happening in real-time basis with the paper. So paper moving from here to there in a file, you have to take out, so many prints, make it in a file, move from one place to another. And for example, I am, as you mentioned, I am part of the Center for Engineering Technology. We are in-house consultant to SAIL, Steel Authority of India Limited. So we have our offices located at different, plant locations, Bokaro, Bhilai, Rourkela, Durgapur. Now, if they want something, a small thing there, the file would come from there to here, which would take its own sweet time. So I'm just trying to, make you understand and sensitize basically what was happening earlier and how much time it would have been taking. So first thing probably is the time. Now, once we, we knew that it was taking a lot of time and there were solutions available. I mean, as it happened, our steel plants, they have this ERP, SAP kind of systems in their place, but we were not having it till about 3.5 years back. That is one. And CET, we are knowledge hub. Naturally, we have to be. If we are the in-house consultant, we have to be the knowledge hub. We have to be the center for all this, technology you call it or other processes. We have to have everything. It's of course it's a metallurgical.
Early adopters, if I may suggest, it's early adopters.
Okay, yeah, I was coming to that. So what is happening here is that we have everything digitalized over the years. Our cost database system, our dashboard, our the project management, all this thing was all digitalized. Probably this was one big misfit here, that we were still using paper. And then, of course, this was just around the time I joined this place. So this is all happening and people were thinking about it, slowly, mindset. Of course, we will talk about it in a bit of time, but then, yeah, so this was a major, requirement that we were missing something, we were taking not only the time and see the similar activities, all these are repetitive activity and people were involved in, doing the same thing all over and over again. There was no template as such, that kind of a thing. Speed, as I said, about the time part. And, when it comes to decision making, probably that reminds me of that book, Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. So it should not be like you take your decision by instinct. It has to be with that knowledge you have. It has to be with that insight of the complete knowledge. So probably that knowledge, that repository probably was scattered. It was definitely there, but it was scattered. So those things probably, made us realize that we have to, go technical way. We have to leverage technology to go in this direction and go for this kind of a scheme. While I am talking about these, let me also talk about one more thing. See, it was easier said than done in the sense that we thought about it, technology was available, but were our people ready for it? That was a major issue with us, right? So, see, innovating is basically technology, but then people adapting is something which is behavioral. I mean, we have to come around and people are scared from all kinds of, the safety, security, and don't forget we are a PSU. And PSUs means we are, open to scrutiny by vigilance, audit, and so on and so forth. CBI also for that matter. So we have to be rather wary and very careful about, how we proceed. So as long as it was on a paper, we were signing papers, we were keeping record. Of course, I mean, it's a different matter that we have, a whole lot of big library of those files, so to say. But then, yeah, we had something to show when somebody comes. Now, this system probably people do not get, faith so soon. Now, of course, things have changed, but otherwise, there is a sense of, transparency somewhere being playing other way around also. It could be, it could come back and harm you. For example, what happens is when you create that indent, when you're talking about the paper indent, you create that indent, there is something wrong or something, if you find it's absolutely, you have messed it up, you will tear it off and you'll start all over again. But now with this system, this cannot happen any longer. So transparency, the trail, so these are the big, advantages as we have come along. So yeah, coming back to your question, basically, so the triggers, the enablers, or the requirements, I would say, was definitely the time and the people. They can be utilized in a different manner. I mean, you need less of manpower for processing if you go through this medium. And then, of course, you have we knew that if we have the system in place, we will have this management information systems reports would be available to a great extent to all these people and who can take that very educated decisions. Then, of course, let's not to forget about the paper. It's a big. We all know what we are going through, right? You are in London. You are like really lucky, I would say. Here we are facing probably the hottest year. I mean, I remember in Ranchi is a very cool place. It was supposed to be once upon a time a hill station of the United Bihar earlier, right? But now things have really changed. We are also touching pretty high temperatures, and this all because of, we all know. I mean, of course, one of the major contributors is defelling. Sorry, felling of trees. So paper directly is a big contributor. So environment is also there. Then of course, time again and again is the major bottom line, which has really helped us. Thank you.
Follow-up question to you. Well, you obviously have gone through the cycle of adopting a procurement technology for your department, and you took us through, what were the triggering factors for that. Now, was the ease of adoption of a technological platform when you are going through the selection process, was it a factor that you took into consideration, like, what will be easier for your team, the behavioral aspect of decision making or behavioral aspect of people adopting to technologies and processes? Was this part of your decision making when you were selecting a tool suitable for your organization?
All right. Let's look at it from this point of view. See, we have our procurement system, right? We call it procurement procedure, we call it. So it has basic 4 tenets: transparency, fairness, uniformity, and efficiency. I mean, any system probably would have all these, See, the procurement system is basically, what is the basic objective of a procurement system? To make us available the material, the right price, right time. Probably these are the major, the bottom lines of any procurement system, be it E or paper-based or whatever it is. So, as I said, these 4 basic tenets of our procurement system. Of course, now we can. Your question actually now, forces me to add the adaptability also of the procurement system itself. So yes, all these, transparency is of course very much there, as I was just describing. In case an indent, there is an issue with an indent, earlier people would have, taken care of it in a different way, sweeping under the carpet and things like that, but now they cannot do that. So all those, whatever workflows are there, whatever happened in the past, it's all listed there. You cannot destroy any indent. So if anybody is auditing, we'll definitely get to that. It should be uniform to everyone, it should be fair. And of course, e-procurement system would always be efficient. And there is absolutely no doubt about it. See, I look at it from a different manner also. You must be knowing about that PDCA, plan, do, check, act kind of a model.
Yes.
So let's look at it from this point. I just thought about it. So what you do is you first innovate. Then you educate your stakeholders. Let's not forget, stakeholders also include the vendors. We have
Suppliers,
not
contractors.
Absolutely. Yeah, vendors, when I say vendors, I mean the generic word vendors, our contractors, our suppliers, our other, whoever is involved in that process who are supplying us. So it should be palatable to them as well. They should also feel confident and, sure about what they are doing. So as I said, so innovate, you bring people on board, then you slowly, gradually, you adopt the system. Then what happens is you should have a feedback kind of a thing. Okay, if you have adopted, there may have been still some issues. Might have adopted a little early or half-baked position. Then you give the feedback to the, to the your driver, your service provider or technology provider, and they again, go back to the drawing table, and again, they innovate, further innovate, improve the product, and this cycle should go on. In fact, let me also share with you, when we was about to start this e-procurement here, okay, let me just tell you, it was about 2.5 years, which was actually, taken for us to really go into the 2019. We started with this e-procurement. So what was happening is, in this process, in this all these 2.5 years, they were proposing something. We were saying, okay, there's something wrong in this. So go take back, do this small bit, come back again. So basically, it was not going anywhere. It was going back and forth, and really no progress was being made. Probably there is a time, when you draw a line and you decide, okay, enough is enough. Let's start with this. So see, either it's a rational approach or an irrational one. That's a matter of discussion. But if you think it would have met the basic objectives and it is basically is fine, I think we should go ahead. And as you go along, probably you can keep on improving. As I said about that PDCA kind of a model, you cannot expect a absolutely error-free kind of a model, and then only you would launch the project. So there I had, this arguments were there in my department, in my team. We were still do. I mean, this always happens. I am always in the process. I'm a believer. Go ahead. Let's see what will happen. It's like, you start climbing and then we'll see what comes along. It's good to plan. All right. It's good to plan, but plan how much? Right. So anyway, so this kind of a thing we started, and I know, I would share with you the actually in this kind of adoption, the major support has to be from the top management, the apex management. If they are not going to own it, no matter you try, it will not succeed. So at the end of the day, or probably somebody, some top person would be the approving authority. If he does not like the system, if he is not sold to the system, whatever you do, it will not succeed. In fact, there may have been some cases when you have done, gone a long way and then, come back, or you have completely annulled the system, you have completely, gone back. So I did not want that to happen. So I convinced my CEO here to understand, to listen to me. And then we made the M-Junction, our service provider, to make a presentation where, all our top management people were there and all our stakeholders were sitting. And then and there, after the presentation, it was decided. I think this was on Friday afternoon, some 4 to 5. Monday onwards, no paper indent. And that's it. It was a major, yes, it was a major decision, In fact, yes. In fact, we are actually, notorious to take this kind of a decision. Otherwise, things don't work. I'll tell you one more example, which doesn't have to do anything with the e-procurement. It was did I get muted myself? Okay.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it was in 1990 or somewhere when SAIL completely stopped overtime for anybody. Just like that, and there was a lot of hue and cry from unions and things like that. But then we stuck to this, and this been what 32 years, 33 years now, and we are still going with that. So probably we are used to, but sometimes, not always, and not everybody does that. So I must thank my CEO, who was actually pretty bold enough to take this kind of decision and take it really big step forward. So yeah, of course, coming back to the ease of adoption thing. I think, yeah, so those are the factors which actually would help behavioral. And of course, yeah, before we went live with this, we also had a discussion, sort of a stakeholders conference where we took everybody in confidence. We told them about the software, how this works, and there's complete secrecy and there's complete encryption and things like that. And of course, people were apprehensive, people were resisting, but at the end of the day, slowly, gradually, and now surely we are in procurement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that introduction and the details that you provided. My next question is to Mr. Shastri. What are the factors you have considered or you should be considering to define and ensure successful adoption in e-procurement, and also your thoughts regarding change management? I know we discussed it, earlier, but this I think is very important, and with your experience, extensive experience that you have. Mr. Shastri, you have to unmute yourself, please. You're on mute.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So actually, for me, for creating the adoptions of technology, uh, for me, it's a big ticket expectation. My expectation would be like we need a partner who can provide us the strategic advice. Like I need a greater strategic business orientation in any of the technology endeavors. That not only means the gauging technology transformation in terms of the business matrices, but also securing the commitment to such initiatives by building consensus within the client organizations. Like they should provide us the insights into leading edge innovations, the cross industry best practices, as we are eyeing for the technology providers to take care of the bigger price for the shareholder returns and the customer orientations, customer acquisitions, service and engagement, revenue growth, regulatory compliances, risk management, and the competitive differentiations. We also need a service provider to showcase their ability to assume end-to-end ownership. So these all form like what Mr. Koff says, sorry, Chuk says, like the management involvement and management support is very much required, top management. So this all form like a very good platter to the management to take their owners or to take their go ahead. If we can provide this all, so management can say okay fine, this is okay with us, then we can move ahead. Now when it comes to the implementation part, what I assume that service provider or the technology providers to ensure that the participations from the business and technology sides work cohesively in one team, help the building an environment of mutual trust, because if you don't have the mutual trust amongst each other as a team, you won't be able to achieve the ultimate objective. And the most things is alignment, which is a major factor in any of the project success. If we are not aligned to the project, if we are not aligned to the basic objective of the project, so we won't be able to achieve the ultimate goal. So normally when we go for any of the implementations, so what we expect to not to go on like total basis, the service provider or technology providers use the agile methodology to deliver the product, to ease to incorporate the user feedback while implementation. Why I said the user feedback? Because again I'm going back to the my initial statement. We discussed the interconnectedness. So you have to create the you have to connect the user at the beginning of the process itself. So you have to take into confidence them, like you have to take their feedback, how the system will work, how the system and what are the benefits they can achieve so far if the same is getting implemented. Now after implementations, the training and handholding plays a very major role here, and during the process of implementation also, the change management is a very critical factor for achieving the ultimate goal. So we have to provide the platform, we have to use all the medium of communications, we have to take all the users on board so that the adaptability and the adoptions is we will be creating from the first day itself. So at the time when the project go live, so there will not be any hanky panky between the users and all to accept the system and to adopt the system. And the most common factor which we missed out always, deliver the business benefit as promised. Because see, when you go for any of the implementation, we commit so many things to the management, but when it comes to the delivery part, we missed it out. So whatever benefits we promise, we there is a exact need for delivery of those promised benefits. Because if delivery of benefits as planned, this will act as a catalyst in enhancing the adoption rate for both the top management and the user as well. Because see, when management sees whatever the benefit we have envisaged so far, if this is not getting achieved, so as Mr. Duke said, uh, then there will not be any immediate go ahead some sort of things. So if they say like fine, if whatever has been promised to us, we are getting the benefit out of that, fine, you go and implement the system immediately. So therefore, I would request that we would plan the effort and success matrix precisely. And then after implementations, take care of the hypercare support, like what are the teething issues when it is coming after the implementations. The system is more agile, more flexible enough to take care of all jerks, and we may provide a workable solution to all the users, in starting from the end user to the top management. So I think if we achieve all this, we can create the adoptions not only to the users side but also to the top management side, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shastri. Thank you very much for your details. Mr. Girish, now my question to you, sir, is, we all know last 2 years has been something which has been very challenging for all sourcing and procurement professionals around us, and the industry has really been disrupted. So, my question to you is, how did the last few years, did it enable a faster adoption and triggered the need for a technology solution like e-procurement? The point is, does such changes, such major changes, make people, in a quicken and hasten their process of adoption of technology?
Very interesting question. Did the disruption force companies to quicken their pace of investment in technology? I would say yes. The answer is that today there is an interest in among CPOs for digitalization. The earlier problems that manual processes, CEO buy-in, all of them fell through because of a very simple reason. In the last couple of years, what happened was that there was tremendous amount of disruption. You do not know where your supplies are. You do not know how they are traveling towards you. You do not know where they are stuck. We have had horror stories of a container being booked by from Japan to India, getting offloaded at Singapore and sitting on the terminal there at Singapore for a month. At the end of the day, you don't get your stuff. So there was tremendous lack of visibility in the supply base, which was the first trigger that people had. The second trigger which also happened was that most companies had not mapped their supply lines. I was talking to a CPO and he said that, in 2019 December, we realized that there was something happening in China. So we quickly changed our sources from China to Europe. Though we had to pay a little bit extra, we did shift our buying to Europe, before realizing that the European supplier is also dependent on China. Now look at the loop that we are bringing in. How will you ensure this without having a visibility into your entire chain? Now that was what started CPUs to think about what should we do to create a supply chain which is resilient, which does not give us a nasty surprise at the last moment. There was a Harvard study also which was published on a Ford Motor Company supply chain where Ford Motor Company believed that 80% of the risk to their supply chain emanated from two tier one suppliers. But the Harvard study later on discovered that 80% of the risk was coming from two vendors who were in the eighth tier of the supply chain. They were contributing to this major disruption which was happening at tier one suppliers. So, these kind of issues started, the process of driving CPUs to look at how can I get on top of this lack of information. So far, we were all worried about having information of our transactions. Even if you're having a piece of pen and paper, you have that information with you, though it is not be actionable. But what we today realize is that it is not just about the information that is within your organization, it is the information about events outside your organization which a CPO should be worried about. He is in control of everything under his domain. What he is not in control of the moment it leaves his domain and it goes into his supplier domain. When these issues started coming up, people started realizing that I cannot do this without having the right amount of technology. And then the better trigger to it is also that there was a time, in fact, for a very long time, technology, though evolution was there, it was not as quick as it was in the past few years. Today, we have a plethora of solutions and solution providers who are bringing in some of the best technologies to the table at a very cheap, at a very reasonable price. I wouldn't say cheap, I say a very reasonable price based on models which you can afford based on your appetite and based on your willingness to grow with the technology. So yes, the pandemic did bring in the kind of major shifts. And also look at it. When we speak to CPOs, we also find that most CPOs, and unfortunately, a lot of us believe that technology is to be handled by the CIO or the CTO, and which is the worst way to go about in technology.
Absolutely.
Has to be the CPU. The CPU is not involved in the decision, then the CTO will do whatever he wants. So the CPU needs to develop a clear digital vision. That is still lacking today among a large section of the CPOs, not only in India, but also overseas.
Yes, very right. Yes.
And then we also now need to look at what do we need to do with this technology. We have access to technology. We have access to creating a better model of procurement. Right? We need to think differently, and it has to be through what? We need to sit and reevaluate, and that is what CPOs today are doing. Can I add value to my organization, not through cost reduction paradigm? That paradigm will exhaust itself. How much of cost will you keep reducing? After some time, that Occam razor comes in, and then you will have nothing more. And if you squeeze your suppliers too much, you will have no suppliers left with you. And which also is one of the major fallouts, which learnings from the pandemic, where organizations which looked after their suppliers, where the suppliers also looked after them during the disruption, including a transporter whom we consider as the least important, has now suddenly become the most important person within the the entire supply chain. Today we care for the driver, we care for the transporter. There has been this push which has come from this pandemic, and this push has definitely led to a rethinking about not just the pace at which technology has to be adopted, but the contours or what are the dimensions in which technology has to be applied. Can it just be for transaction automation? No. Today we are talking about how can I make it resilient. Today I'm also talking about, can I bring in zero-based category management? Can I look at each, and how will I do this if I don't have the technology? Can I look at visibility? These are the dimensions which are now coming in apart from the transaction side of it. Transaction is a given. In today's world, if you don't have a transactional system, you cannot operate efficiently. The discussion today is, can we create value added solutions in our organizations? That's my take on what's happening in the world.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insight. We now have the webinar open for questions. I can see a couple of questions which just come in. Just a second. The first question is for Mr. Shastri. What are the main or what is the main or evolving demand of new age CPOs from e-procurement platform? What do they consider as key or important features when they look at buying or selecting a particular platform for their organization? Mr. Shastri. Mr. Shastri, we can't hear you. If you can unmute, please.
So this is a very pertinent question in this scenario. It's like COVID pandemic disruptions and war type situation right now. So see the point, like today in today's scenario, the data crunching, the data analytics, because we are sitting on the huge database, but of no use. We have the ERP systems flowing into the system, but we are not make it a very good extensive use of it. So we need a tools which can provide us a good opportunity for data analytics, so that whatever decision we take or will be taking, that is like supported by the data analytics. Not we, even the management also. So we are like looking for the technology providers to come to us and provide us that tool for data analytics. And the other innovative like solution like artificial intelligence we were talking about right now. So exactly how it is matching our expectations, where we can make a best use of those available technologies in our day-to-day functions, and we move ahead. See, technology is a tool only. Technology is a tool only which can enable us to achieve at a higher level of efficiency. So that is what we look forward, so that technology can make our life easier, because only technology can do this. Because see, if we go manually searching for the supplier in today's scenario, we may end up with the 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all. But if we use the help of technology, we can easily reach across globe in a fraction of seconds, even so. So
Right.
what we need from the technology provider to help us to reach to the right material at optimum price. I will not say the right price, I will say optimum price here, so that and make our life easier, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question from the audience for Mr. Chog is, in a PSU, does adoption becomes effective through persuasion or through top-down dictums? A bit cheeky question, I know, but
Indeed.
would request if you can throw
As
some
I was
light.
listening to your question, it was the word which came to my mind was tricky and a very interesting one too. In fact, I would like to, a little object to this question. I mean, why only PSU? I think it's true for all kinds of companies, Why only pick out the PSUs for that matter? Fine.
No, I
I
didn't
mean,
say tricky. I said cheeky. So
yeah,
sorry, I said cheeky.
this is
Yeah,
cheeky.
so
In
just
fact, cheeky
clarify.
and tricky both. In fact, see, what
So
happens
please go ahead.
probably is that hierarchical. I mean, of course, PSUs are known for hierarchical setups and things like that. So it happens, yes, the power flows from the top to bottom. That's absolutely correct. But I'm sure this must be true for so many other companies as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Let's leave aside the point and come to the question itself.
Correct.
So fine. See, the point is about the change. When we talk about the change management, why change? Why would like people? I mean, why would people like to change? I mean, if you do not see the greener pasture on the other side, why would they like to go there? In fact, let's say even in this case, why create similes and metaphors? It's like you are taking a longer lead time, the paperwork and physical movement, organizing meeting. This is all very difficult tasks to do that. Physical meetings, etc. Now I mean, when you look back those years when you used to have lots of meetings, we were very fools doing all this. And you could have done sitting here, sitting on our table, working all this, right? So fine, those issues definitely were there. But I believe, as I said that time also, it all about behavioral aspects. You have to convince, you have to win over, you have to sell this idea to the stakeholders. Problems would definitely be there. People may not be interested, as I said, because a known evil is better than an unknown angel, right? You do not know what really I mean, is going to happen when you go to that way or whatever it is. So yes, it is difficult. Definitely, it's difficult to convince people. It's not that easy. But then, uh, in our setup kind of a thing, probably decision making is most of the times confined to the top. We have our delegation of powers of different levels and things like that. So what really happens is that the people who are not sitting the top at or near the top don't feel so empowered sometimes to take such decisions. And I mean, resultantly, what would happen is that they would not like to, just go to the uncharted territories. So they would not only be, I mean, given the support, the confidence, the faith in the system, the new systems that is, they would not like to do that. And see, when the instruction or the order comes from top, okay, you have to go live with this, you have to adopt this system somewhere triggers that okay, you have to really adopt. So this helps. But having said this, I would still say such challenges, such such changes would definitely need a focused approach, uh, collective I mean the sale collective or set CET collective in our case has to be sold to this idea that there is an advantage, uh, really a tangible one in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of utilizing the manpower in a better way, efficient way. Then of course things would definitely happen. I mean, be it any company, but it has to be from both sides, bottom upwards and top down. Both have to be on the sync, in the sync. Only then you can really
Becomes an
proceed.
imperative. There's no other way but to go in for that adoption. Thank you, Mr. Chow. So our next question from the audience is a very interesting one. So I would also, like to.
If I could
Sorry.
just
Yeah,
add
yeah,
to
please.
what Chandra Mohan said, you know, any enterprise transformation has to be driven from the top. That is because the person at the top has an enterprise view. The bottom has got a micro view. Now, it is a question of will the tail wag the dog or dog wag the tail? You cannot drive enterprise transformation bottoms up. Bottoms up, what happens is what we call as Kaizen, small improvements in the operational changes. That will be bottoms up. Enterprise transformation, whether in public sector or private sector, are always driven by the top because they have a larger view. We need to keep this in mind when we make that question, that do I have the necessary view of the entire organization? Like Mr. Chandramohan or Chandrasekhar Shastri would have. Does the nth man sitting in their department have the view that they have? Therefore, their inputs are much more critical and their driving is much more critical. That's something that people need to understand at the base level.
Very, very right, and very rightly put, Mr. Girish. I think you have that experience, and therefore Very nicely synopsized. And in fact, the next question is for Mr. Girish. It's come from the audience, and I like this question very much because this is something which even I would like to know. Is what is the future outlook of adoption of procurement technology? And I would add analytics to it also because I think we are a bit slow in adopting analytics in our procurement processes and sourcing processes in Indian mid-sized organizations. So we know the larger companies have most of the time have adopted various technologies, but mid-sized companies like 1,000 crore turnover, 5,000 crore turnover, what is their appetite for using, adopting, and transforming their procurement processes? In India, what do you see?
See, one of the things that we should always realize is that it is the smaller organizations which are nimbler and who can make that decision faster. A mid-sized organization is mostly a command and control organization. I see very few democratic mid-sized organizations. They run typically by a single person sitting at the top who drives change. Do I see adoption among them? I have not seen money on the table, but I have seen definite interest and conversations about what is the kind of data which we need. The prime reason being that the mid-sized companies also have a larger pressure on their bottom lines. They are caught. The larger companies have the economies of scale and ability to drive prices, while the mid-size don't have that bargaining chip with them. And therefore, they need to become a lot more efficient. It is this drive to efficiency and ensure that they survive, which is pushing the mid-sized organizations to look at technology implementation first. Why analytics? Primarily because we have reached a stage where the amount of data that we have, both internal and external, has come to a stage where we cannot anymore depend on human analytics. We need to move into data-based and data-driven analytics, and which is what even the smaller organizations are realizing. We keep getting a lot of requests from organizations to say that, can you drive an analytics program for us, for our people, so that we can familiarize them with what is the kind of flexibility available even among those people. This is coming primarily because they are thinking of driving analytics, and AI/ML becomes a part of the decision making. That said, what we also need to realize is that when we get into this kind of an analytics driven enterprise and procurement, there is a lot of value which is still left on the table, which people are not realized. So a lot of focus is now given on what is it that I can drive with this analytics. The major change, the major problem I see in organizations looking at analytics is that I have this data. What analytics can I make out of it? The better option would be, I have a business challenge. What kind of data do I need to resolve that solution? What is the kind of data? From where can I get that data? And how can that analytics help me? So the question should be kind of reversed, is what my opinion is, because analytics has to support your business. Analytics is not a standalone function. So if you have a good business case, a business problem that you want to talk about, look for data. And which is where, again, I emphasize, it is not the data that you have in your ERP system, that is transaction history. It is the data outside your ERP system which has to now drive analytics. And that is where someone like a third-party platform provider or a solution provider can step in, because he has aggregate amounts of data, which is not only just of the transaction, but also about the environment assets. So we are going to see a large explosion in terms of analytics. We are going to see geopolitics. We are going to see climate. That's a major challenge that we are having, which we are not talked about. We're going to see logistics. How will I drive my solutions based on logistics? Because today, whether we like it or not, by 2070, we have committed to becoming carbon neutral. That has to be factored into our analytics. So there's got a lot of things, exciting things which are happening in analytics. I feel that, yes, in the SMEs, not the SMEs, the mid-size, there are conversations which have started. That's from my take.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Now, this is a question for, I think we don't have much time left, but one of the last few questions is for any of the speakers. I would be interested to take it. What are your views regarding integration of e-procurement platform with your enterprise ERP or enterprise resource planning, so software that you have? Also, view on data mining, analytics we covered for further mastership over the organization spend. Any one of you?
So I would say that is not a question at all. It's something that is a given.
Yes.
You can't live in silence.
Without that, you can't do it.
Okay,
Live it.
okay. Just in that, I mean, not exactly in the same area, but I would like, in fact, my e-procurement system as we have right now to get in sync with the let's say we are using this GEM platform, Government E-Marketplace, that we all know, GEM, right? So if we can, that has still to be done. In fact, I mean, I would use this forum to request your MJ team to, if we can get some kind of a help. See, my idea is different. My idea is my call it a vision or call it a, a wish list, whatever it is. It's like when I go through this e-procurement system, I should be able to, connect to all the available e-com platforms, and where I can get this particular item or supply of services, and what would be the most economical rate for me, something like that. I mean, even going for without when going with without for tendering, I should be able to get that the then this that idea of AI and ML, etc., all those industry, those things will then really help and leverage technology, whatever we call it, that would be useful. So if we can take it forward in that direction, that will be useful. Of course, our ERP, etc., in plants, these are all connected. Let me tell you that, because what we are procuring, what cost, what is going into production, this is all connected at our plant level. So that is all done as far as sale is concerned to a great extent. Maybe not to 100%, but to a great extent, I would say. But this, as a procurement manager, I would request and expect and wish it could be done. Thank you.
Exactly, Anirban. That is the future of integration that we talk about. Not just within. Why should I have to, right? That
Outside as well.
is more critical rather than ERP is done.
Yeah. No, I will like to bring here something which, in my experience, what I've been seeing over here in UK and Europe particularly. Now, with respect to financial platforms, what I've seen is there are quite a few very competitive products which is there available for corporates to use, which are like have brought down the costs massively. 1/5 of what the legacy systems used to cost. For example, you have systems like QuickBooks, Zero. These are helping small size, mid size companies reduce their cost on managing financial systems, needing to having a chartered accountant or things like that. Everything is now on the web, on for hire, and you pay as you use, and very very cost effective manner, maybe 1/5 the cost, for example, for some organizations. So maybe procurement also needs to take a leaf out of such platforms and develop comparable products for the industry. So if I may see if any. One question, I think this should be the last question. I'm sorry, because we are almost running out of time. Why is there a reluctance? Still, there's some reluctance, resistance in decision making. So there, people are considering, people are evaluating, but the final decision making of adopting an e-procurement technology in the sourcing domain, why is there still a hesitance that people see? Maybe Mr. Shastri, your experience.
A common comment.
Point is like there is a resistance of like adopting this e-procurement still exists, because like see the people who have not gone for this e-procurement for their organization, so there are like people are apprehensive about like what type of vendor to whom we will be dealing with the e-platform? We don't know. The vendors are unknown, maybe unknown vendors. Okay, fine. The lot of KYC will be done, but still, what we believe from like as a conventional practice, like dealing in person is better than dealing with the e-platform rather. So that apprehension is there. Second, like uh, there is also apprehension like vendor may make a cartel sort of things. So what price, what best price we may negotiate, okay, and we don't have any clue if they make cartel and all. So these are the apprehensions, okay. So quality carteling and the quality assurance as well. Like since we have not we are the vendors are unknown on the e-platform, but so what type of quality they will provide us? Even if I take my case, uh, I was very reluctant in on buying my stuff to the e-platform. Why? Because what type of quality they will send us? So, but gradually I started buying it and having experience, gaining experience of procuring the things on the e-platform. Now I can say proudly, like since the pandemic 2020, I stopped going to the mall. I stopped going to the electronic shops and all. So I started buying everything on e-platform, and also not only started buying. I also advocating people to go to the e-platform and buying this stuff, and everything is available. So this is all, see, what you call the change management, what we have talked about. These are change management process, and it will take some times to educate the people, and going forward people will love to buy things on the e-platform, sir. Thank you.
Right, very true. Yes, in fact, especially I think talking about your personal buying or B2C, for example. Now, B2C pandemic has forced a change management. So,
Forced to change.
like no one planned it or anything. It's because of pandemic, everyone was forced to change their behavioral manner and move online. And you're right. And of course, pandemic will also, make sure that people industrial buying also changes online down the line. Yes, absolutely.
It is all confidence. So see, I got the confidence on my personal buying. So I will try to use
Right.
this to replicate in my
Professional buying.
yes, yeah, professional buying also. It's all confidence.
Okay. I think we have come to the end of our webinar today, and it was really really wonderful, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I'm sure our audience here enjoyed the insights, the experience shared from all of your experiences, and all of I think every one of you, all of you are have got considerable background in the area of sourcing, procurement, and technology. So when you speak, it's something which is coming from deep experience. So thank you, Mr. Cho, for being with us, Mr. Shastri for being with us, and Mr. Girish. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You all
Thank you.
been
Thank you
very
very
helpful
much.
today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So here by this we'll end this session. Thank you, audience, for joining us with us today, and we will be continuing this series going forward. And we look forward to see you again in very soon when we have the next webinar scheduled. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, all of you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.